Look at all of you guys. Look at all the students here. When I was 18, I had no idea what I wanted to do or what I wanted to fight for. But look at you. You know what you want. You know what you're going to fight for. You are a force that is demanding change. The opposition is going to call you snowflakes. But do you know what we in Massachusetts call this many snowflakes that are all riding on a wind of change? We call you a blizzard. When I was 18, I joined the United States Marine Corps. And I remember the day that I was handed my M16A2 service rifle. It was the very first time that I had ever held a weapon in my hands. And I remember the mixed feelings that brought. Fear and a dizzying sense of power. Because in my hands, I held life and death, the power to protect life and the power to take it away. Those were decisions that I could make with the pull of a trigger. I remember my first day at the rifle range, looking through the sights and aiming my rifle at a target that was shaped in the silhouette of a man. I remember pulling that trigger, seeing the target pulled down to be marked, and when it came back up, I remember seeing a large red circle that represented the damage that my shot would have done had that target been a man. It was so much like blood. That was the moment that I fully understood that my rifle was a weapon of war. It had a singular purpose: to fully incapacitate enemy combatants as quickly and effectively as possible. Unfortunately, we have seen them used specifically to incapacitate not just enemy combatants, but also innocent children and adults. Yeah, we don't like that. We've seen them used in places like Iraq and Sandy Hook Elementary School, Syria and Pulse nightclub, Afghanistan and Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School. I'm now a teacher, and I'm specifically one of those teachers that our president considers adept. One of those teachers that our president believes should be armed. As a vet, I can tell you that a handgun in the hands of an untrained, overworked teacher will not be an effective measure to prevent these mass shootings. One study done by the Violence Policy Institute found that highly trained police officers have only an average of a 20% hit ratio in armed confrontations. That means that only 20% of the shots they fire hit the intended target. How is a teacher, even one that was previously trained by the United States Armed Services, expected to do better than a trained police officer who is constantly going through weapons training? I do not want a gun. I do not want to answer the question during a frantic situation, does anyone here have a gun? I especially, as a woman of color, do not want to answer yes to that question. Philando Castile was a school employee shot by a police officer during a routine traffic stop. And he was shot specifically because when they asked him if he had a gun, he said yes. It did not matter that that gun was legal. It did not matter that his family, including his 4-year-old stepdaughter, was in the car with him. He was shot 7 times because he was a person of color and he answered yes. Schools throughout the United States are already dealing with unprecedented budget cuts. Services such as teacher trainings, librarians, art programs, and after-school programs are being cut due to austerity measures enacted by the current administration. Yet somehow, there's money for teachers to have guns. But guess what? We teachers don't want them. I don't want to be armed with a gun in my classroom. If you want to arm teachers, arm us with science equipment to spark discovery. Arm us with enough pencils and paper to last all school year. Arm us with books that aren't missing pages. Arm us with equitable funding throughout all school districts. Arm us with art supplies and musical instruments to inspire creativity. Arm us with librarians to help students explore the joys of reading. Arm us with buildings that aren't crumbling or infected. Arm us with enough school psychologists so that they can do more than just administer tests. Arm us with social workers and guidance counselors to see to the emotional needs of our students. Arm us with after-school programs so that our kids have spaces to go, and arm us with more ELL programs so that all students feel welcome. But don't arm us with guns. Our schools are places for our students to grow, be inspired, and find their voice. And as we can see by all of you gathered here today, the schools right here in Massachusetts are doing that job without guns.